Hi there, and welcome to the garden with Hyundai Power Products. My name's Adrian, and today we're going to look at this HYMT5200X 5-in-1 multi-tool. So I'm going to open the box, lay the contents on the table so you can see exactly what you get. So I've laid everything out on the table so you can see exactly what you get. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of it. So we'll start with the head unit itself. So obviously we have the engine, the upper shaft, and the controls, everything here. Again, there's a handle here which will need to be fitted. We have the toolkit, we're going to need to use that, and we have the user's harness as well. So, okay, moving forwards. We have the trimmer head. Now, this will need a little bit of assembly. As you can see, we have the guard here, and we have the standard bump head. And again, we have the blade as well. There's a different way of fitting this. Okay, so that's everything associated with that part. We have the extension shaft, which is another meter long, so that gives you the extension and longer reach. We have the hedge trimming attachment. This comes with a plastic cover, and this can be used in conjunction with the extension pole as well. Finally, at the front here, we have the trimming attachment. So basically, a little chainsaw on the end of the last head and the associated parts. So we have the bar cover, and the chain. Again, we have the mixing bottle. Now, this is a two-stroke machine, so you're going to need to know how to mix the two-stroke oil. And we do have a separate video on that. And finally, but importantly, we have the user's manual. Now, I do recommend that you read the user's manual thoroughly before use. So the first thing I'm going to do is to fit the handle. So if I go in the toolkit, you'll see there's various tools in here. I'll in fact show you the tools. Spark plug spanner with screwdriver, there is a spanner, and two sizes of Allen key. We want the smaller Allen key, first of all, to undo the 4 bolts in this clamp here. So I'll undo the 4 bolts and bring you back. So with the 4 bolts undone, I can pull the 2 halves apart. So you'll see this consists of 2 halves and this rubber bracket. So I'll just pull that out. Now you'll notice that there's a spike in the bottom. When we put it back together, we need to make sure the spike goes in the hole in the rubber part, and this rubber part will wrap around the shaft. Now, with that said, you'll see that there are 2 holes. The taller, longer-armed sort of people would probably want to line this up with a lower hole, and the shorter people, such as myself, probably use the upper hole. So what I'm going to do is just lay that rubber roughly in place. Now I'm going to pass this pin through the hole in the rubber, into place there. Just locate the hole. There we are. It's in the hole there. I'll just stand that back up. And then, of course, I can just place the handle back on and then go around and tighten up the 4 screws. So I'll just get 4 started first of all, and then I'll tighten them up. Okay, so as you can see, that's the lower handle all in place. So with the handle fitted, all the lower tools connect into the end here in exactly the same way. We'll come back to that shortly, so let's deal with the controls of the engine and starting. So we have the on-off switch here. Forwards is the stop position, backwards for start. Okay, 2-part throttle. So if I went to pull the throttle, it won't pull. I need to push down the rear lever to enable the throttle. That stops you accidentally starting the machine. Okay. So that's the trigger mechanism for the accelerator and the start-stop button. So if you've looked at the other video, you'll see exactly how to mix the 2-stroke mixture of your fuel. So again, this is a 40-to-1 mix, and the other video will be very useful if you've never done that before. So first of all, we would fill it with fuel, not too high, perhaps to the sort of this level, just below the filler neck. So here we have the recoil, fairly straightforward. Here we have the choke. So to start it, we need the choke in the up position. Once it's started, we can then push the choke down. So that's the choke lever there. Up for choke, down once the engine has started. And the final thing, I'll just tip the machine over and show you where the primer bulb is. So the primer bulb is here. If we had fuel in the tank, you'd be able to see the normal red colored fuel coming up into the primer bulb. So we need to push that several times to prime the machine. So when you can see it's pretty much full of fuel and you can hear it flowing back to tank, that'll be the engine fully primed and ready to go. So our procedure would be switch on, first of all, on the switch at the front here, put the choke on, prime until we know we've got the flow of fuel, and then we can simply start it on the recoil. Once the engine is started, we can rev it just a little bit. If it stalls out, we can go through the procedure again. But once it's started, we can turn the choke off. Once it's warmed up, we can rev it fully and we're ready for use. To stop the machine, let go of the throttle, let it settle back to idle for a few seconds, and then switch off on the on-off switch. So I'm just taking the extension pole here just to show you how these fasten together. Now, all of the tools come with this little black protective cover. So when you finish using them, don't throw these away, but plug them back on when you finish with the machine, and that'll keep any dirt out of the end of your fittings. So I'll take that off, put it safe. So you'll see this little plastic lug, that faces down into a slot in the end. So I'm going to loosen the knob off, place the machine in, or the tool in. Now you'll see here, let me just pull out a little bit, this red line. Now this red line will be in exactly the right place. So when you push it in, you'll see the red line come up to the end of there. You know you're fully inserted. Once you're there, tighten up the knob, and that's the simple quick release connection. To remove it, undo the knob again, pull the tool back out, and remember to put the cover back on. There we are, and that'll stop any dirt getting into the end of your shaft. So I've got the chainsaw attachment here. As you can imagine, well, it's a pruner basically, but again, it's got the plastic cover, fits in exactly the same way, up to the red line, exactly the same. So all the tools follow that exact method. Okay, so we're going to look at the trimmer head next. Obviously, this comes with a guard to protect you, and there are 2 screws pre-fitted in the guard. So I'm just going to unscrew those, and the guard, very simple to fit. Place the lower tool on top there, just start those 2 screws. So I'll get that one started, I think I've got it there. Get the second one started. Okay, that started them off. Again, I can go back in my toolkit, get the larger of the 2 Allen keys this time, and tighten up those 2 screws. So don't be tempted to leave this step out. Make sure you put the guard in position. That's the guard fitted. So next I'm going to move on to showing you how to fit the brush cutter. Now you'll see on here that it's got a yellow sticker over the hole. There's a hole in the center. And it does say that excessive vibration will occur if the blade's not mounted correctly or centrally on the drive shaft. So it's very important to get this mounted centrally. So I'll show you exactly how to do that. So to undo the nylock nut, we need to fix the shaft of the machine, or that goes into this little gearbox here. And you'll see this hole on the side, and there's a corresponding hole on the adapter ring inside. So I may need to just turn it around, and you'll see, there we go, I'm in the adapter ring. So now, left-handed thread, so that's off with the nut. That's off with the little bump ring. Okay, now we must leave this spacer on, or this drive connector. So we leave that on. Now I'm just going to take my little blade here, remove the sticker. What I tend to do is put the writing on the blade facing up. So we need to make sure that that's fitting exactly on there, not loose in any way. So with that done, where's my little spacer? We then take this washer here, and we want the hollow side facing the blade. Then on with a little ring, and then anti-clockwise, we need to tighten up the nut. So what I'll do is just find that hole again to lock the shaft. Remember, it's a left-hand thread. I'm using the box spanner that was provided. So I'm just going to remove this blade now. Again, anti-clockwise would be tightening up, and clockwise to loosen, because it's a left-handed thread. So what I tend to do now is to put that washer back on, and then, still holding the shaft, screw the bump head on again. Let's just get it started square. Where are we? There we are. There we are. Hold it solidly, spin it on, And that's how we fitted the bump head for grass trimming. And again, to remove the bump head, just remember it's the opposite way that you'd normally think. So to tighten this, I turn clockwise to undo it. There we are. But you need both of these rings when you fit the bump head. If you don't put them on, you're going to have trouble getting it off again. So make sure you leave both of these in place, and at all times we're going to need this in use. So for the hedge trimmer head, you'll see it's got these two levers here. So what we can do is actually lock the head at an angle. So if I lift that up, push the two levers, as you can see, I can fix it at that angle. If I squeeze the levers together, I can fix it at that angle, or I can have it straight on. In fact, it'll go at any graduation from about there all the way to straight, and even beyond straight in the other direction, right round that way at 90 degrees. So it's pretty universal as to how the head can be adjusted. Other than that, there's no further assembly. Always keep the plastic cover on it when it's not in use. It'll prevent any damage to the blades. So, as I described, squeeze the triggers, freeze it up, and then it locks off. I'll squeeze them again and put it back right round into its storage position. So that's the hedge trimmer head. So, the pruner head. Okay, so there's a little nut on here, conventional thread. I'm using the spanner that came with the kit. No left-handed threads this time. I'll remove the nut and just remove the plastic cover. Okay, now this gives us access to be able to fit the chain and the bar. So if I look at this chain bar, and as you can imagine, the top of it, where it says Hyundai here, the top would be the top. So the cutting face would be the underside. So you'll see a little symbol here. And if you look at the tooth, the black section teeth, you'll see the short section on the front, and let me just get more pointy, the short section on the front and the wide section to the rear on the top of the chain. So that would be the correct way round. So if I just flip that chain over the wrong way, now if I look at a black link, you'll see the wide section is at the front and the narrow section at the back. So that's not correct. So flip it back the right way. That's the correct way. So I'll just pop my glove back on and just place the chain over the bar and get the chain in the slot all the way along. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my glove on. I'm holding the chain fairly taut on the end there in the chain bar. So I need to locate the inner teeth of the chain into the slots in the gear on the end here. There we are. Let's just about do it. A little bit of a wriggle and a jiggle. Just make sure we're in position. Okay, so I'm glad this has happened. There's a drive pin here in this lower hole, as you can see. Now this is the adjustment pin, and it's too close this way to allow me to push back to get it in the hole. So I'm just going to remove that bar, but just show you the adjuster. So the chain tensioner is done with this screw on the end. So if I bring it a few mil further forward, as you can see, that just came here towards the end. I should now be able to get it on. It would be very simple just to make it look easy, but these things are meant to be helpful. So again, I think we're all right this time. So put the chain in the slot on the end. Shouldn't need any force for this. It should just drop in. And there we are. That's the chain in its base position. The pin is now in the hole. That's far enough back. The chain is in the gear here, and we're still in the groove all the way round. So the next thing for me to do is to put the cover back on again. It should just drop on there over the top. And that just captivates everything temporarily. So I'll just do up that nut, but I'm not going to do this nut up tight. I'm going to nip it down too, but I'm not going to do it up tight. So at some point here, oops, I'll feel resistance, maybe back a little bit. That still allows the blade to move up and down, as you can see there, but we're way too slack. The chain's coming right out of the groove. We don't want that. So I'm going to need to adjust it to bring the bar out to tension the chain. So if I flip it over on this face, this is the point where I can now get my screwdriver on the adjuster and give it a couple of turns. Now it'll turn freely for a short period. Now you can see as I'm tightening it, the chain pulling up into the groove. So we're looking for it to be not hard that you can't pull it out, but tight enough that it should snap back into the groove. So let's just try that. Okay. Now another thing before we tighten up this nut is there will be a bit of play in here, as you can see. We need to make sure that the play is up, which is where the pressure of using it is going to put it. So with that up, we just take the spanner, finally tighten up on the cover nut, and that'll lock the blade and the chain in position. So now the blade doesn't move, it's in the up position, and as you can see, that now snaps back in, it's free to move, and it snaps back in the groove. That would be the correct adjustment. Now, one point of note here, when you first start using this, the strain or the chain will stretch initially over the first minutes and times that you use it. So keep a careful eye on the tension of that chain. You may need to loosen that nut off and just retension it on the screw a little bit during its initial use while it does its initial stretch. Once it's settled down, done its stretch, it should stay in set for a fair amount of time. So of course we're going to need to put chain lubricating oil in here. So it just fills from the top, and obviously it's a clear container. There's an upper limit here so you can see how full to fill it. And obviously if you don't use oil, that chain won't last long at all. You do need to lubricate the chain. Again, with that said, when you're not using it, make sure that you put the cover on. It is very sharp. And again, bear in mind, although it be small, this is still a chainsaw. It's a very dangerous piece of equipment, so make sure that you're very cautious and follow all the normal precautions that you would do with a full-size chainsaw. So the final part of the equipment is the harness. So okay, we have the harness here. It has a quick release buckle here. You simply squeeze the two buckles to release and replace the harness. So I'll put the harness on and show you how it works. So I've just put the harness on and roughly adjusted it to myself. Obviously I've got padded shoulder straps. I have the quick release here on the front. Okay, all in line. And the pad here is designed to sit on your right hip. Now it's all adjustable for height, distance, position. Bigger people might need to loosen off these straps here, but it is all adjustable, and again on the side for how tight it is around your chest. So that's how to fit the harness, pretty straightforward. And I'll show you how the quick release mechanism works for the trimmer itself. So as you can see, we have this little red tag here, which pulls this lever out. Now if I pull that lever out, it releases this clip. Now this clip can be left on the machine at all times if you wish. You can take it off if you're not using the harness, but you can leave it on there. So once we've got that clip there, simply a case, when you want to clip it on, feed that through there, drop the red tag in, and that's it. That's the machine attached. Now obviously this is a bit low for me. I need to adjust it up. Lots of ways I can do that, but that's the basics of its connection. Of course, when you finish with it, pull the red tab and you're out. So it won't be at this point until you've tried it on that you know where the pivot point's going to be for yourself, depending on what tool you've got on the end, how big you are, how long your arms are, that sort of thing. So there is a little screw under here, again one of the Allen bolts, and you can move this pivot point back and forth to set it so it feels most comfortable for you. I do hope you found this demonstration useful. I've been Adrian, and thank you for watching.